Hello, and welcome everyone. I'm Peter Allen Clark, Senior Analyst and Editor, Media Content at eMarketer. It's great to have you with us for today's Field Guide webinar, a new format where we explore the capabilities, needs, and benefits of key categories of MarTech, Ad Tech, or Commerce Tech. Joining me today in eMarketer's New York studio is Greg Joseph, Vice President, Inventory Development at StackAdapt. Hello to you, Greg, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Peter. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And dialing in to join us is Jordan Ruden, co-founder and media lead at Craft and Commerce. Hello, Jordan. Thank you for being here as well.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, it's going to be great. Together, we'll explore how advertisers can take advantage of the opportunities connected TV offers, including the tools available and how to choose the best platform for your organization. Now, before we get into the discussion, we're going to play this video narrated by Marcus Johnson, our Senior Director of Podcasts and host of the Behind the Numbers podcast, to explain eMarketer's CTV Advertising Field Guide, made possible by StackAdapt.
The days of one-size-fits-all commercials aired during scheduled TV programming are giving way to a new era of personalized, data-driven advertising. Connected TV advertising was the fastest growing ad channel tracked by eMarketer in 2024, outpacing digital, search, social media, and retail media. In this video, we'll explore eMarketer's comprehensive field guide to CTV advertising platforms, unpacking the trends, capabilities, and key players that are reshaping television advertising. CTV advertising delivers ads through internet-connected devices, from smart TVs and streaming services to gaming consoles and streaming devices like Apple TV. This digital evolution is reshaping how brands connect with audiences and is bolstered by sophisticated advertising technology that enables precise targeting, real-time measurement, and AI-powered optimization. The numbers tell a compelling story. By 2026, 9 major platforms are projected to generate over $1 billion each in CTV ad revenue, up from just 2 platforms in 2020. This explosive growth is driven by changing viewer behavior, with average US CTV usage expected to double from 2020 to 2026, reaching 2 hours and 27 minutes daily. The streaming landscape has evolved dramatically. Netflix, once strictly subscription-based, is now forecast to lead YouTube in CTV viewers by 2025, reaching 190 million viewers. Sports content, traditionally linear TV's stronghold, has gone digital. In 2024, we witnessed Netflix's first live football match and a landmark boxing event, demonstrating how seamlessly viewers have adapted to streaming sports with ads. Free ad-supported television or FAST platforms are reaching 65% of US adults, bringing innovations in ad delivery, according to Hub Research. Platforms like the Roku channel are pioneering new approaches, even selling ad inventory for other streamers, creating a more integrated advertising ecosystem. What makes CTV advertising so appealing? First, there's precision targeting. Platforms can segment audiences based on location, demographics, interests, and viewing habits with unprecedented accuracy. According to recent advertiser perceptions research, 39% of advertisers cite precision audience targeting as a top benefit of CTV advertising. Real-time measurement is another crucial advantage. Advertisers can track performance metrics instantly and adjust campaigns on the fly. Advertiser perceptions found that half of CTV advertisers always use brand awareness to evaluate return on ad spend, whilst 47% rely on impressions or views. The engagement metrics are impressive too. CTV ads boast a remarkable 98% completion rate, significantly outperforming mobile and desktop platforms, according to Extreme Reach. And with interactive features like on-screen QR codes, these ads are becoming more engaging and shoppable than ever. eMarketer predicts that by 2027, shoppable TV will reach 85.3 million buyers. CTV's targeting capabilities reduce media waste, making it increasingly cost-effective. By mid-2025, most streaming services are expected to see significant CPM declines, making this powerful channel more accessible to advertisers of all sizes. Additionally, CTV advertising faces lower fraud risks compared with traditional digital advertising, providing a safer environment for brands. The technology powering CTV advertising is sophisticated yet accessible. Platforms like Mountain, Amazon DSP, and StackAdapt offer comprehensive solutions for campaign management. These platforms leverage AI to identify high-intent households and optimize ad delivery in real time. Advertisers have multiple ways to enter the CTV space. They can buy directly from streaming services for exclusive inventory, work with TV and streaming device makers for broader reach, or use programmatic platforms for automated, data-driven campaigns across multiple services. Each approach offers unique advantages, and many advertisers use a combination of methods to maximize their reach and effectiveness. Of course, challenges exist. Platform fragmentation and measurement standardization remain ongoing concerns, with 39% of advertisers citing transparency on ad placements as a major challenge, according to advertiser perceptions. But the industry is responding with innovative solutions. Advanced tracking tools now help consolidate data across platforms, whilst AI-powered optimization ensures ads reach the right audiences. The future of CTV advertising is bright. As traditional linear TV's ad share continues to decline, projected by eMarketer to drop from 28.8% in 2019 to just 11% in 2026, CTV is positioned for sustained growth. By 2026, nearly 70% of the US population will be CTV users, creating an enormous opportunity for advertisers to reach engaged audiences. The shift to CTV advertising represents more than just a new channel. It's a fundamental evolution in how brands connect with audiences. As eMarketer's field guide demonstrates, the question isn't whether to invest in CTV advertising, but how to best leverage this powerful medium for your brand's unique goals. The future of television advertising is connected, measurable, and more engaging than ever before.
And we're back, and I want to greet again my guest. Hello again to you, Greg, and hello to Jordan dialing in. It's really great to have you both with us to have this discussion. We're going to unpack the trends, the capabilities, and the players in today's CTV advertising landscape. So let's just dive in. My first question is for you, Greg. How have you seen the rise of CTV change the digital or TV advertising landscape at large?
Thank you, Peter, for the question. It's such a great question as we spend time talking about CTV today. So the rise of CTV has led to the democratization of access to the most premium content. If you went back 20 years ago, only the top 500 brands had access to the most premium content. That has changed with the rise of CTV, where not all buyers can access a lot of these premium publishers at scale. You no longer have to go through 20 different emails or 20 different phone calls to access. You can essentially leverage a DSP to access all of these premium publishers all in one place, creating more efficiency and campaign effectiveness.
So marketers say that CTV fragmentation or having too many providers is something of a challenge. What are some optimizing strategies that advertisers can use to limit the effect of CTV fragmentation? Jordan, I'll turn that to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so as an agency, we actually almost like to zoom back up and start with the audience, kind of start with the audience in mind. So not every publisher or every inventory source is right for every client or every product or anything that we're trying to sell. So, and that's even the case, even if you have programmatic overlays to help tighten that up. So we actually start at a higher kind of plane. We look at MRI, Resonate, other audience research, pixeling data that we can pull from websites and see where does the audience attention live, and that's where things really start. Then getting a little further down, it's like being really consistent with your audience targeting, especially as you're buying across multiple sources, is really important. Because as Greg had mentioned, the DSPs have done a really good job consolidating the inventory, managing the audiences. So when you're using your different audience segments, making sure that you're clean on your audience sources, you're clean on your data sources, really helps ensure that overlap won't occur. And then even more tactically, like making sure you're managing towards whatever the right KPIs are. That might be unique reach, a frequency, any of those core things that were maybe it's a little more conversion focused, but keeping an eye on all of those core metrics is really critical as you think about the strategy as a whole.
That makes sense. What about you, Greg? Any optimizing strategies that advertisers can use?
Yes, the first thing I'll say is fragmentation is a real thing.
Yeah.
As you look at the landscape today, audiences are viewing content differently. I know for myself, I have about 20 different apps on my phone and 20 different apps on my Apple TV. When I think about viewing content, I view some content in one app, my kids view content on another app. So I think the acknowledgement that the fragmentation does exist is a key one. When marketers think about optimizing the campaigns, really through the lens of a DSP, how do you think about finding all your audiences, irrespective of the apps they're on? I think more often than not, most people like to be very selective when targeting individual apps and primarily focus on premium content. Yes, while there is Netflix, there's also Tubi. The content, the audiences are very different. So how do you leverage a DSP? Just find those audiences, irrespective of the screen they're on.
That's great advice. That makes a lot of sense. I'd love to know, Jordan, how do you see marketers using CTV to complement a linear TV ad buy or as part of a larger omnichannel campaign?
We love it when we get to do streaming TV and linear TV. And, a lot of that, beginning with the end in mind, especially if we're doing like brand campaign works. One of the things we find kind of again and again is that when we overlap streaming CTV with a linear buy, whether that linear buy is local, national, or a cable or a segmented cable buy, we see the best outcomes. And what I mean by that is we actually have the opportunity to measure those outcomes. So whether that is a brand lift study that we deployed for that particular campaign, whether we're doing a local market holdout test to measure sales lift or sales velocity, especially if there's something in store. Obviously, that gets a little easier to measure if things are online. And then, if we have enough time and with the client, like MMM's marketing mix modeling is really, really important. So overlapping is quite kind of a superpower if you can do it. I think it's the low cost, wide reach, high frequency that linear provides, and then you overlay that with the kind of addressable targeting, unskippable must watch of the CTV ads. We find just consistently that drives really good results. So you really have to look at these things, very holistically, not an either or. Sometimes you have to think of it either or, just budgetarily, but when we can, we like to think of it holistically.
Great. You mentioned targeting there. Advertisers love the targeting position of CTV. It's one of the bigger benefits. But controlling frequency a lot across platforms is still something of a challenge. So what's a realistic solution? Does one exist today? I'll turn that to you, Greg.
Yeah, thank you for the question. There continues to be this misperception and misconception of targeting that's available today and issues with managing frequency. When you think about everything through the lens of a DSP really gives you all of these controls because of all the signals that exist for CTV today. CTV is a signal-rich environment where you get IP, device ID, and all the signals needed to manage reach and frequency. So as buyers are thinking about their kind of CTV buys, it's really key that you understand how your DSP works. What are some of the limitations? Having those meaningful discussions that way, as you think about targeting at the most granular level, where you may have smaller buyers that may want to target at the DMA level, make certain that your DSP that you're working with can actually do that. But a lot of that does exist today.
Yeah. What about you, Jordan? Any sort of realistic solutions for controlling frequencies that you would recommend?
Gosh, this used to be so much harder. It's gotten so much easier nowadays, and I think, like Greg mentioned, we as an agency, we have access to all the major DSPs, and the DSPs have done a really good job of consolidating inventory, getting access to inventory. I know a lot of them have worked really hard to get access, whether you're getting that as a PMP, a programmatic guarantee, or on an open auction or exchange. Just the consolidation of access to inventory has just made this a lot easier, programmatically through our DSP channels. Where this does get tricky is when you start to go to vendors directly, and there are times and places where that makes sense. Sometimes there's something you want to do with a Hulu or something like that where it's a very specific buy, but you do end up it gets trickier to manage that reach, frequency, KPIs, all the reporting that I think clients really expect today. That everyone's so used to digital advertising, they expect that real time reporting, those real time outcomes. So when you start fragmenting it across vendors, there is a time and a place for that, and it is something we do. But there is something about when you can run it all through the DSP, it just makes a lot of that management and blocking and tackling just so much easier.
A great point. Okay, so you've got your targeting. How should marketers approach the challenge of measurement? The challenge of measurement standardization exists, and what are some ways to approach that across these CTV platforms? Jordan?
Yeah, one of the nice things I would say all the DSPs, especially because they all have APIs, so we can plug them into our reporting tools. You have the core, you have your core KPIs, right? You have your reach, frequency, impressions, video view, video complete. And again, when you're pulling that from one source versus multiple sources, it's just even easier for our, ad ops teams to pull all that together and share that out with clients. Zooming up on the measurement question, when we have enough time, budget, scale, that's where we start to kind of look bigger. So obviously there's closed loop attribution that we can do, especially via a lot of the DSPs, to measure online sales, online traffic. You can close the loop much easier. But how it fits into a larger integrated media strategy, that's where we really like things like, MMM to give us, a full, clear view of how these tactics, strategies are adding to the overall, revenue or profit contribution. And what's kind of exciting is the more of these models we've run, especially more recently, streaming is just really good and even better when we compare it with traditional TV. But streaming is really good at contributing to long-term contribution, both revenue and profit. So you'll see short-term on paid social, you'll see very, very short-term on paid search, for example. But when you look at the long-term ROI and the brand building piece of it, streaming really, really works well there.
That's a great point. Great point. I'd love to turn that to you, Greg. Any advice on how marketers should approach the challenge of measurement standardization?
Yes, one of the things I'll acknowledge is that there are some limitations when it comes to the standardization of measurement tools that exist for CTV today. Yeah. But there are third parties, like when you think about Samba TV and our partnership with them today, that's one of the great ones. Mm-hmm. I think what's key for marketers is understanding what third-party solutions exist within a DSP, and then CTV has to lead to outcomes. I think quite often, or legacy way of thinking about TV is this is my branding pie. But the reality is marketers are smarter, they're wiser. How do you leverage the insights in your DSPs to make certain that every ad view ties back to an outcome? Yeah. And that's a lot of that is available through DSPs today.
Excellent. Taking a big, broad view, I'd love to know what is one benefit of CTV advertising that you think gets overlooked by marketers? I'll turn that to you first, Greg.
Yes, so thank you for that question. So I think the biggest benefit is the access to supply, and I touched on it earlier. This past summer or last year's summer, for the first time ever, NBC made the Olympics available programmatically. Yeah. One of the biggest events of the year, or the biggest event in the year, the inventory was available programmatically. One of the things we've noticed with the rise of CTV and CTV in general is that buyers now have access to not only the most premium content, but the most premium events. Mm-hmm. And the reason why you care about the most premium events, you get the most engaged users. I know when I sit down to watch the Olympics, I'm probably sitting down for 3 to 4 hours at a time and actually not leaving my seat because the wide array of content. That is something very important for marketers not to overlook. CTV provides a wealth of opportunity and something that buyers should continue to tap into as they think about their digital strategy.
I love that answer. What about you, Jordan? What's one benefit that you think is overlooked too often?
It was hard to buy streaming for a while, and it has gotten much easier. So just the idea of streaming sometimes does get overlooked. It has gotten much easier to use. I think people still feel that it may be expensive, and the costs have come down. And even just building on like a lot of what Greg said, like with the opening up, I think, of live sports on streaming is, I don't know if it's overlooked because that is more emerging, but it is really important. Sports is one of the most important things that people watch on TV, especially live sports. It's a great place to capture attention. It's from an audience kind of research measurement point of view, it's very easy to pinpoint audiences around specific sporting events. Um, so I don't know if sports is necessarily overlooked, but I think that it is really emerging, and I think it's really important. And I know a lot of the major DSPs have done a lot of work to get access to that inventory, especially here over the next kind of recently. And then I know it's something we're deploying for a handful of our clients. Formula One, a lot of baseball, Super Bowl and football, as Greg had mentioned. There are opportunities there.
Well, Jordan, you mentioned inventory, and now the majority of major streaming platforms have ad tiers, so that ad inventory is set to stabilize. In what ways does this affect a marketer's approach to CTV campaigns?
One of the nice things, planning is so much easier nowadays. 'Cause we can work with a single partner to help us figure out inventory across all the publishers, right? So, when you used to buy CTV, it would almost be like buying television. You'd make all your calls, you'd call the vendors, you'd be doing all the deals, and now you can work with a single rep, you can get access to good inventory. The DSPs can clear that inventory now, so all of that's gotten much better. But I think, like, when you think about inventory, I think, again, as so much of what we do here as an agency is thinking about the audience. So, just because Netflix opened up inventory doesn't necessarily mean it's right for the client or the project, or even that they can clear all the inventory at the scale you need to. So that's, again, something that a really good vendor can really help you figure out. So, if your audience is aligned, and you can scale your inventory as needed, and you're building a holistic strategic plan, I think certainly doing that through a demand side platform, is a great way to go about it, especially because the inventory they have nowadays.
That's great advice. I'm curious about maybe a first-time CTV advertiser. What is the biggest piece of advice you would give to a marketer weighing their CTV advertising platform options for the first time? Greg, do you have any advice?
Yeah, happy to share some details and advice. So the way I think about CTV is CTV should just be part of your digital strategy. The same Greg that is watching content on Disney Plus is the same Greg that is driving a car listening to Spotify. I'm also the same person that's going through the mall and making a purchase at my point of intent, and I see a big digital out of home screen. The reality is, as buyers think about their digital strategy, CTV has to be a big component of that, and for engaged audiences. But how do you leverage your insight into your audiences across different points and where they are to be able to find value in that strategy? So I think seeing it from a larger omni-channel approach where you leverage CTV, audio, digital out of home as part of your larger strategy.
That's great. What about you, Jordan? Advice for a first-time CTV advertiser?
Yeah, I think, Greg definitely nailed it. It is almost table stakes nowadays as part of omni-channel strategy. You're looking at all these channels. Thankfully, as I mentioned, costs have come down. It's not as complicated and as hard as it used to be. And a lot of what we see in our research, a lot of attention time is living there. So whether that's on a premium ad-supported channel, fast ad-supported channel, any of those, the audience attention is there, and it should be strongly considered in the mix. And if done right, even though the CPMs may be more expensive than a display banner or an online video, the attention time that you garner, and the lift that we see in our studies, whether they're brand lift studies that we're doing, as Greg had mentioned, through third-party sources, either directly through the DSP or independently, we consistently see the lift and the contribution from those buys, especially when they're part of a larger strategic overall buy.
That's an excellent answer. Well, Greg and Jordan, we've really covered a lot so far, and I think it's time to turn to the audience and see if they've
Of
got any
course.
questions of their own. I see here's one for Greg. With more inventory and lower CPMs, some advertisers are treating CTV as a low-cost reach play. Is this a mistake? How should brands be thinking about CTV's true value in the whole media mix?
Of course. I'll use an example of this past February. So this past February, Fox, who streamed the Super Bowl, also streamed the Super Bowl on Tubi, which is their FAST app. You had 13 million people watching the Super Bowl on Tubi. The reality is, because fragmentation does exist, audiences are in different places. It shouldn't be seen as just kind of a low CPM play. There's a significant amount of value in finding the right audiences at the right time in the right place. And you have, as we mentioned earlier, we have all these various signals that give us enough insight into the audiences and their point of intent. So the value is like really thinking through not only just the CPM as a standalone item, how do you see this holistically? How do you make certain that as you have your campaign strategy and some of your KPIs, you're leveraging the audience insights, leveraging the access to supply at scale as a means of seeing outcomes, which CTV should be part of your CTV strategy.
Jordan, what about you? How do you think brands should be thinking about CTV's true value in the media mix?
Yeah, look, especially like if your audience is on fast, you should be on fast, right? As Greg had mentioned, it does offer, generally lower CPMs and a lot of scale, right? Those are the trade-offs that you're thinking about, So it always comes down to, where's the audience attention and how can you get to it as strong as possible, for as low cost as possible with the biggest impact. And so really depending on the channels where you want to go, I think that it's still always a really good option to look at, but it always needs to be looked at as part of a whole media mix, or even as part of just, how you're folding it into your whole CTV or streaming strategy.
Great. Okay, here's another one for you, Greg. How should marketers factor AI into their CTV planning and buying strategies?
Thank you for that question. So as we think about AI and the rise of AI over the last several months, has become like the buzzword of the industry. There's a lot of things that AI is useful for. Today, buyers spend a significant amount of time in campaign setup, whether it's setting up a media plan, sending emails to publishers, and I think even Jordan alluded to getting on calls and talking to people. One of the things that we focus on is adding AI to the campaign workflow for buyers to create more efficiency.
Yeah.
What this allows is less waste of time, which is probably the easiest thing, where you don't have to spend hours and hours to get something done, everything being done within a few seconds. And then also, as we think about the ability to optimize campaigns, optimize creatives, we're leveraging AI for that within our DSP today, which I think has driven a lot of value for our buyers, and will probably be the next evolution as we think about programmatic and CTV within the digital ecosystem.
Excellent. We've got several more questions from our audience. For both of you, what types of ads are performing best on CTV?
That's a good question. What's really interesting, it's a bit more of a creative question, and what you measure and how you measure best, right? Like, is best measured by brand lift? Is it measured by sales? Is it measured by audience engagement? And it's really interesting because, if you look, let's say on Prime, the videos that come up on there, they're pretty low res in a way, and they're pretty simple. And then you may go onto a Hulu and you're going to see some of the most sophisticated healthcare ads in the marketplace, right? It's hard to say. I think if your creative is matching the creative strategy or the audience that you're trying to reach, then that is best. Now, hopefully you've tested that creative, either digitally and you have some measurement there. But best is a hard way to kind of answer it, but it is a way to think about, making sure that, your channel allocation, your creative strategy, and your audience targeting all really work together to combine into a holistic strategy. And then how are you measuring that to decide what best is? Some folks run CTV or campaigns literally for brand. Think about like Safe Light. I mean, just as an extreme example, everybody knows the jingle for Safe Light, but you probably need a windshield once every 10 years, right? So they're measuring that very differently than maybe something you would see on Prime that's trying to get you to buy something on Amazon today.
Great. Do you have any insights into this, Greg?
Yeah, I think
about what type of ads are performing best?
Jordan is alluding to, KPIs for campaigns differ significantly.
Mhm.
The reality is any campaign can work really, really well if you find the right DSP, which is important, but leveraging the right tools within a DSP. So I don't want buyers to be restricted through the lens of these 5 verticals work best. That is no longer the case. These are not the legacy branding days of linear TV. You really have enough tools within a DSP today to make your campaign as efficient as you'd like it to be. It's just asking the right questions, which is key.
Absolutely. Looks like we've got a few questions about metrics. Let's take this one. Can you share your opinions about measurement currency for CTV? Is it being done well today, or could it be improved? And if so, how?
I'm like, Jordan, do you want to take this one? 'Cause I know
Measurement currency?
So yeah, so look, I think at the most simple level, you're measuring CTV by impressions, reach, frequency, and video completion rates, and maybe video views, and those used to be a little harder. They're pretty standard, and we know what to expect. Almost going back to the previous question of what works best, how do you start to close the loop on that attribution? So any DSP that you're using, or if you're using a vendor, you want to make sure, at least from a website tracking perspective, and especially if they have the opportunity, if they're selling online or selling something online, that you're at least able to, close the loop between exposure and a sale, or exposure to a click to a sale, or that you're even, you know, gosh, from a measurement point of view, that you're even measuring people who viewed the ad and then putting them into a retargeting funnel, and all the things that go down funnel from there. So again, and we do like to zoom up on the measurement piece, because again, it does live in that orbit between traditional TV, where it's harder to measure and it's a bit more brand focused, maybe except for something like a DR campaign, and an online video, or a paid social ad, which has a more DTC or a direct conversion outcome. So the measurement thing is unique, but I think you have to really, what's the hypothesis of what you're trying to do with the campaign? How are you going to measure that? And then make sure you have all the tools, and at least as an agency, that you're setting the right expectations on the client side of what they're going to see and how you're going to measure it, and when you're going to report on that, and how often that will be.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. It looks like we have time for one last question I'm seeing. For both of you, on the local level, it's the Wild West as far as third-party aggregators are selling the same inventory as the big guys. Sometimes you can only purchase from 1 or 2 partners, or 1 to 2 partners. Any thoughts on how to determine what the best approach is for this?
Yeah, I can chime in and take this one. I think it's important. The notion of aggregators is one that probably needs to go away, because right now you really don't need to work with aggregators when you think about accessing local Disney Plus supply, or NBC Sports, or even Paramount Plus. Part of the value of CTV, to some of the earlier comments I made, is there's enough signals there to target at the local, even the most granular DMA level, even zip code level. So buyers now are no longer constrained to finding the 5 MVPDs that work in an individual market, because as you know, the cable market is fragmented across the US. They can really speak to the biggest publishers in the world, and work with them for deal activation, and then work through a DSP to get the most granular targeting available. So I think right now a lot of that does exist, but it doesn't need to be seen through the lens of aggregators. You can work with some of the most premium publishers directly today, even at the local level.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'll just build on that. Just on that, just from the agency operations too, like, it's way easier for us to consolidate these things into a handful of sources than try to go to a lot of local vendors. The DSPs, the access they have to inventory now is just very good. So the aggregators, like, it just makes it a little harder. To buy it, to manage it. You always have to make sure you can clear the inventory, and it obviously depends how granular you need to get. But I mean, we do CTV campaigns. We have a local home services company, and we actually divvy up their streaming. We built a strategy for them, where we would divvy up their streaming based on local zip codes, based on residences and income and things like that as well.
That's great. Well, I think that's going to do it for this conversation. It's been so much fun. Really, really appreciate both of your wonderful and genius answers, frankly. Greg, thank you so much again for being here. Really appreciate having you. Wonderful to meet you.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And Jordan, thank you so much for dialing in. Wonderful to have
Thank you so much for having me.
Jordan, pleasure.
Thanks so much, Greg. So fun.
Yeah, we both really appreciate you taking the time, and thanks to the audience for the questions today. It's been wonderful, really great discussion. Before we wrap up completely, let me take just a moment to tell you about eMarketer's media channels. You can register for live analyst and tech talk webinars on our events page at emarketer.com/events. Don't forget to check out our podcasts, Behind the Numbers, Reimagining Retail, and the Banking and Payments Show. Listen everywhere you find podcasts and watch on Spotify and eMarketer's YouTube channel. And finally, please subscribe to our newsletters. Keep an eye on your email for the link to today's playback. And of course, feel free to contact us if you have any other questions. Thank you all so much again for your time. And thanks again to Jordan and Gregory, the team at StackAdapt, and our eMarketer studio team behind the scenes for making this webinar possible. Thank you again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.